Chapter 1, Day 1, Sanren 21, 15,368 ABG. James covered his eyes against the sunlight that seemed determined to drive ice picks. No, I'm better than that. Fire picks? Yeah, much better, he thought sleepily. Yes! Fire picks through his eyes just because he had slept in. It was Saturday, wasn't it? He was having trouble remembering the night before. Reaching down, he tried to pull the covers over his head, except he couldn't find them. In fact, as his hand fell back to what he thought was his mattress, everything felt remarkably, grassy. Also, his pillow wasn't soft. In fact, it felt surprisingly like a large rock jabbing into his back. Showing bravery on par with assaulting a horde of giants or talking to a really hot chick sitting at the bar, he opened his eyes and took in his surroundings. He was in a small glen studded with wildflowers and colorful plants. At his back was a large shelf of stone, and beyond it were the foothills of mountains rising in the distance. There were also trees in front of him, forming the other boundary of the glen, rising tall and majestic. The scent of pines mingled with the fragrance of the flowers. Birds of various types could be heard performing call and refrain. The moss growing on the trees was a brilliant green, and there was a crystal-clear pool several feet in diameter between him and the stone outcropping. It was one of the most serene and beautiful settings he had ever seen. It evoked feelings of connection and tranquility, and he expressed himself accordingly. What the hell? He sat upright as quickly as he could, not at all helping the headache that blazed in intensity at his swift movement.
About time you woke up.
Turning his head, slower this time, he saw the small form of an imp lazily flapping its wings as it hovered 3 feet off the ground. Its body was humanoid, if only 1 foot tall. James stared at it in fascination. The VR module had never produced a creature so lifelike and unique before. Standing up, he slowly walked closer, examining it in wide-eyed wonder until he was only an inch away. He was enthralled. That feeling faded rather quickly after it kicked him in the eye. Ah, you dirty little... James immediately began swatting at it with his right hand while holding his eye with his left. It lazily floated out of the way of his swing and rolled its eyes while sighing heavily.
Look,
it said.
I'm here to help you, and even if I wasn't, it would take a lot more than a friggin' noob to take me out. Now, if you don't want me here, I can always leave.
It turned its back as it spoke and started to gain altitude with a faster flap of its wings. No, wait, James said quickly. I just don't know what's going on. Last thing I remember, I was in this castle and then there was just a light and now I'm here. And who are you calling a noob? He asked with a bit of indignation. Ignoring his question, the imp faced him again and regarded him silently for a moment. It was almost like it was daring him to say something else to offend it. With a small nod to himself, it began to speak again.
Okay, noob. You are in the land. You are not playing a game anymore. I'm going to say it slowly this time. You are not in a game. Your mind and soul have been transported here and placed in this body. Let this sink in. If you look around you, you can see that you are in a small glade. This is a safe haven, but as soon as you leave, you can die. If you die, then you will come back to this point, unless you find another safe location or town to bind your spawn point to. The good news is that no one else should be able to find their way here. Even if they did, the enchantments on this glade should keep them out, unless you lead them in.
James opened his mouth, but stopped when the imp raised its hand.
This will go a lot faster if you just listen. A being a lot stronger and I'm guessing smarter than you has paid me a lot more than you're worth to talk to. Believe me, millions of those other noob seeds will not be getting this treatment, so just listen. As I was saying, you are guided to this particular spot by a higher being. Before you ask, no, I don't know who. I'm here to give you some basic info about this world so you don't become troll dung in the first few minutes. The land is bigger than the world you came from. You are one of the first of your people to be brought to the land, and you were lucky enough to be brought to this little safe haven. Apparently, where most of you will land is random. Some of you might be in towns or cities, some in forests or mountains, and some will probably be dead on arrival because they fell into oceans and drowned. Who cares, right? You've landed in the forest of Nadria on the River Peninsula. Do you remember anything about this location?
Yeah, it's near the Kingdom of Eve. Supposed to be a section of land with a crazy amount of rivers crisscrossing through it. As far as I know, the patch to travel here hasn't been released yet, though.
Good, you're not completely useless,
the imp said.
The land is not exactly like the game that you remember. Your character won't be either. Case in point.
The imp snapped his fingers, and a hand-sized wasp flashed into existence. The imp casually looked at James and simply said,
"Attack."
The wasp immediately flew at James, with its stinger extended as it curled its body. He quickly rolled to the side, hearing and feeling a buzzing pass just by his ear. He tried to activate the hide action of his character, Silk. The wasp, upon missing with its first pass, immediately turned around and flew at him again. It clearly still saw him. This time, he didn't have time to dodge, and the stinger punctured his left bicep. Red-hot agony seared through his body as he swatted the wasp away. Its stinger withdrew and it flew back into the air. The pain was worse than anything he had ever felt. What the hell was going on? The pain dampeners were not supposed to allow anything to hurt that much, let alone just the sting of a wasp on steroids. He picked up a rock with his right hand, activated his attack buff, true aim, and threw. The stone flew from his hand towards the wasp. It easily dodged to the side, though, the rock missing and accomplishing nothing. That was not supposed to happen. At his high skill level, there should have been less than a 1% chance of a projectile missing when he activated true aim. With no apparent thought at all to the injustice of the situation, the wasp flew in and stung him again in the other arm. Agony lanced through him a second time, and he noticed a small green skull and crossbones in the bottom right corner of his vision. No longer able to fight off the wasp, as neither arm was working.
He wondered, did a bug just kill me?